What's up, witches, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Syzygy, and we've got a doozy of a video topic today. Crappy Facebook games. The goddess knows I'm not a stranger to them. Growing up, I played a ton of Facebook and mobile games, as Facebook was the only platform that I had until I was 12. Most of my internet formative years were spent perusing the dress-up games and making terrible comics with that one Bitmoji game. You know the one. Out of every game that I played though, one game has stuck with me for almost 10 years now, and that game is Avi Pets. I got my first account on Avi when I was just 8 years old. Interestingly enough, my mom was actually the one who made the account for me, as well as an account for my sister because she wanted the both of us to play with her. The game itself is a breeding and economics game. Essentially, you can adopt or genetically engineer a pet, breed that pet with another pet, wait for the egg to hatch, and then have an entirely new pet that is a genetic mix of the two parents. The idea is to build up a collection of pretty pets. Yep, that's it. It's just an outlet for your hoarding tendencies. The more serious players create these things called projects, where the project maker will genetically engineer a ton of the same pets and breed them together, all the while splicing in mutations in each new generation. The project makers eventually end up with two parents that they can breed together repeatedly to create the perfect offspring that looks exactly like the both of them. It is here where the project makers can sell back the offspring to earn back the in-game currency that they spent making the project. Sound complicated? Well, my 8-year-old ass thought so too, because I never really played the game much. I logged on here and there, but I never really put much time or energy into it. In fact, I left the game for a couple of years and didn't return until I was 12. When I returned, I still wasn't really interested in the collecting pets aspect of the game and decided the social and roleplay side of the community was more for me. I met a lot of my good friends, some that I still have to this day in that community. There was an unfortunately large amount of drama on that particular side of the community though, but alas, that is not the main topic in today's video. Today, I want to talk about a drama on the other side of the community. A drama that I caused. Now, as I mentioned before, my mom was the one who actually signed my sister and I up for Avi. This is because she is an Avi Pets fanatic. She has played the game for roughly almost 10 years at this point and is a fairly well-known project maker who has made hundreds of projects. Yes, my mom is, in fact, charismatica. If you're watching this because you're an avid player of the game, then you probably know who she is. But for those of you who don't, all you need to know is that she's more or less kind of famous in the project community. So this whole thing happened a few years back in 2017 or 2018. I can't remember which, but it was one of the two. At the time, there was no actual project registry or a function to guard and protect your projects. You could not lock them like you can now, and those who bought a project were able to breed their own pets with that project. Incidentally, they were also able to put the projects that they bought on free breed. This is where a user called TipTop enters the ring. For transparency's sake, that was not her actual username. I just picked one that was very similar to the one that she had at the time. But anyway, Tip, which is what I'll be calling her for short, was a very popular user and had thousands of friends on the game and a small cult following. Her whole shtick was that she would go to the new users page when that was still a thing, and she would send a bunch of the new users' friend requests in order to inflate her friend list. The highest number that I ever saw on her account was almost 33,000. She would also buy people's projects and display them on her profile. She never made any herself, to my knowledge. Now, neither of these things are offenses, of course, but the issue with Tip was that she would not only display people's projects, but she would put them on free breed without asking the project makers. In fact, she would often actually put projects on free breed that expressly stated not to. New players that didn't really know much about the game, whether that be the social aspect or the unspoken rules, would breed with the projects Tip had and then would be blocked by large project makers that realized that they had bred with their projects. So, these new players that Tip would friend would be introduced into the game fairly poorly. One person that she did this to quite often, the putting projects on free breed thing, was my mom. Because my mom is pretty prolific, Tip was able to buy a shit ton of her projects and put them all on free breed. Now, why would this at all be a problem? Well, because others who had similar looking pets could breed those pets with the projects and come out with an offspring that looks similar or even sometimes virtually identical to the project. This would result in less revenue for the original project makers, because why would people go out and buy the project if they can simply breed their own pets with said project and get a similar looking pet for free? Tip did not limit this practice just to people that were prolific and well known, mind you, but she also did this to smaller creators as well. At the time of this whole debacle, my mom showed me a specific example of a project pet that Tip bought from one of my mom's friends, who is a very small creator and did not make many projects. Tip put this project on Free Breed, and when my mom showed me the list of offspring that the pet had, there were over 5,000 children at the time. The project maker in question had only sold 8 to 10 of the original project pets. This is even more of an issue when you consider the in-game currency that you have to use to make projects. To generate a set of pets and to splice each mutation onto each pet, you have to pay a significant amount of credits. As a result, each project, depending on how many mutations the project has, can cost anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 credits to make. And how do you get those credits? Well, to get that much money, you can't really just turn eggs. You either have to be selling other projects and making money that way, or you can win them in the occasional raffle. But the most common and efficient way to have enough of them is to buy them. With real money. Because of this, my mom has spent thousands of US dollars on Ovipets credits in the past 10 years that she's played. This number is even worse for many other project makers, especially the ones who do not create very many projects and therefore don't make many credits from their other sales. In essence, Tip was stealing revenue from other people. Revenue that these other people paid real money for. And what was Tip getting out of putting everyone's projects on Free Breed? Nothing. No, I'm serious. Absolutely fucking nothing. She was not making credits because they were free to breed with, and I would not be surprised if she spent a whole lot of dough on the game herself, being that she did not make projects herself and had to get the money to buy them from somewhere. Something that is also pertinent to remember here is that Tip Top has been doing this for years. She joined just about a year or two after my mom did, I believe, and my mom and others had been dealing with her tomfoolery for 5 whole years without really saying anything about her publicly. Now, you there in the audience may be thinking that these project makers could simply DM Tip and kindly ask her to remove the projects from Free Breed. Then there wouldn't be a problem anymore and everything would be sunshine and rainbows. But you would be wrong. Every time that someone DM'd Tip Top and asked her to take their projects off of Free Breed, she would instantly block them. No mercy. She wouldn't even reply to the messages. She would deadass just hit them with a hard block and keep the project up on Free Breed. This led to a lot of animosity and tension in the project community. A lot of people were gossiping about Tip, but no one was ever able to just knock some sense into her or get through to her in any way, because not only would she just block them, but she also had a lot of dedicated friends and family members that would defend her and mass report anyone who dared to speak up against her. It was because of this that my mother decided to make a group posting about it. My mom is the owner of a group called Paid Ovipet Stars, or Pop Stars for short. The group is private, and to join you have to submit a request and be approved by my mom or one of her mods. Tip Top was not a part of this group. My mom made a vague post about Tip and her actions, but she did not directly name or link Tip's profile. She simply stated that everyone who is mutual friends with people that put projects up on Free Breed would be unfriended and blocked. She only directly named Tip when a few people DM'd her and asked who it was so that they could block the person as well. She never outright stated it publicly. Apparently, a few of Tip's family members were actually a part of this group and recognized that the vague post was about Tip. When Tip learned about this, all hell broke loose. Tip started sending mutuals of hers and my mom's to buy my mom's projects and send them to her, and she and her family members would talk about my mom and badmouth her behind her back. And there was a very quiet but raging war for a time. Whew, now that you know all of the backstory, this is where I come in. My mom vented to me about Tip Top, which made me a bit curious about her. Thus, I went to Tip's profile to investigate. Now, I am unable to show Tip's profile here because she has since deleted it, but I can still remember what was on it. On her profile, she claimed to be a 90-year-old blind woman whose husband would operate the computer for her. This, my friends, was a ripe crock of shit. But Syzygy, you shouldn't speculate about people's disabilities. It's really cruel and kind of ableist. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Speculating about people's disabilities is ableist and gross, and I wouldn't do such a thing. Unless You know how Tip had several family members that played the game with her? Well, my mom was actually very good friends with one of her family members. For the sake of this video, I'll call her Cherry. Cherry was Tip's aunt and was in her 30s or 40s, she never really specified. Cherry told my mom that Tip was not blind or married, and just judging by the fact that Cherry was her aunt, Tip was quite a lot younger than she claimed to be. Besides the 90 and blind claims, Tip's profile was littered with swirly pink borders, pseudo-intellectual quotes, and ooh-woos. 13-year-old me thought that her entire profile was pretty ridiculous and almost satirical. Thus, I suddenly got the inclination to make a parody account of hers. Just to be clear, the point of this parody account was not to expose or call Tip out on her behavior, nor was it to directly insult or harass her. I made the account because I thought that my mom and others who were frustrated with her behavior would think that it was funny. So I created my magnum opus, Top Tip. Yes, it was just her name reversed. Don't come for me, I wasn't that creative. So, to describe what I did, I recreated her profile while tweaking the text to make it more satirical. For example, she had a pink sparkly banner on her presentation that read something along the lines of, "I'm just a 90-year-old blind woman who wants to play, so be patient with me." I put the banner in a photo editor and changed the text to say, "I'm totally blind and 90 guys, please believe me." She also had the quote, "Let sleeping dogs lie" on her page. Ironic, I know. And I changed the quote to say, "Let sleeping dogs die." To complete the parody, I adopted a few of the ugliest pets that I could find in the adoption center, named them each the middle finger emoji, and then put them all on Free Breed. This took a fair few days, as you can only adopt a pet every 10 minutes. Finally though, when my dastardly scheme was completed, I did what I had set out to do to begin with, and I sent the real Tip Top account a friend request from the Top Tip account, as well as friending my mother and a few other friends of mine. My mom didn't even know it was me at first, funnily enough. Now, the account that I made, though not respectful or kind in any way, did not directly attack or insult Tip. In the presentation, I never attacked Tip's character or even linked her profile, nor did I send friends of mine to go after her. Hell, when I sent her the friend request, I did not even comment on the request or say anything to her at all. So when she quickly blocked me after seeing the request, I thought that just was the end of it. Joke achieved. I could go back to living my normal life on the game. The next morning, though, things got a little bit more heated than I had expected. After friending Tip's account and my mother's, many people learned of my account's existence. Though many who were on my mom's side of the feud thought it was funny and attempted to friend me, I denied most of their requests. The problems arose when Tip Top and her friends and family learned of the account. Apparently, my friend request was such a threat to her brand that she reported me and emailed Avi's support with a link to my account and claims of death threats. At the same time, she spoke about my mother's original vague post about her and said that she thought that it was my mother who had made the Top Tip account. This is why I woke the following morning to a suspension on my main account. At the time, I used my main account fairly often and had many friends that I could only talk to via this account. Because of this, the suspension made me pretty upset, even if it was warranted in the AviPets mod's opinions. Thus, I emailed AviPets support and asked why they suspended my account. They explained that I was suspended for violating their terms of service, specifically the bullying and harassment rule. Again, though my account was not kind, I never directly sent any sort of threats to Tip and therefore did not harass her, in my opinion. Because AviPets support said I was suspended indefinitely and did not give me a date as to when my suspension would be up, I worried that it would be a permanent ban. I worried that I would not be able to alert my friends of this, so I resorted to the most amazing of tactics and lied, unapologetically. Remember when I mentioned that my sister also had an account on Avi? At that point she had stopped playing altogether, so I figured that I could pin the whole thing on her and say that it was her account and not mine, so that they would suspend the account that she didn't even use. My account was later unsuspended and everything was good. Well, actually no, because my mother was actually suspended instead, which was also very distressing to her. This is also the point in time when she realized that the parody account was me. Another thing to mention here is that at the time, Tip was spreading the parody account around and attaching my mother's name to the account, so my mom's eventual suspension only just made people think that she was really guilty. After appealing to Avi, they agreed to unsuspend her account after a couple days. Once she was unsuspended, however, she returned to chaos in her own group. A girl who I'll just call Southie for the sake of the story, who also happened to be Tip's cousin and Cherry's daughter, was directly attacking my mom and her group with claims of bullying and harassment. Not only that, but at the time my mom was suspended, Southie and Tip had made their own group, which was an anti-bullying and harassment group. In the group, they would post publicly about my mother, even naming her. Many people who were mutuals with my mom and Tip sent my mom screenshots of Tip and the gang talking shit about her and scheming about what they could do to take her down, per se. Though my mom did not save any of the screenshots, she did send them to Avi Pets and explain what was going on. At the time, she did not even demand for there to be any consequences for Tip and the gang. She simply wanted to inform Avi about her side of the situation. After this, the situation slowly died down. Southie and Tip blocked everyone against them and disappeared from the Popstars group. Shortly after, Tip even left her TipTop account permanently, stating on her profile page that she was done playing and would not be returning after the situation. The thing about this was that Cherry, Southie's mother, was still in my mom's group and one of my mom's good friends. At the time, Cherry was still buying my mom's projects, and my mom didn't really see this as a problem. Cherry and my mom even discussed the situation, and Cherry just decided to stay low-key and not say anything. That is where the story seems to end. Tip and Southie are gone and off doing their own thing. The anti-bullying group that they made was still going strong, but was not directly naming people or linking them anymore. And everything went back to as it was. The only thing is that even 4 whole years later, people still believe that the top Tip parody account was my mom. This account actually still exists. As you can see here, Avi themselves removed my presentation and changed my username to Jane Doe, though my edited profile picture is still there. However, this was not the end, because just 2 months after this whole debacle, Cherry started acting strange. Her dialect changed a lot, and when speaking to my mom, she became very abrasive and dismissive. Finally, all of a sudden, Cherry's profile changed to a new name, a new presentation, and she began to put my mother's and other people's projects on Free Breed. The presentation, which Cherry had not changed in 3 years previous to that, suddenly became pink and flowery. Her avatar became a teddy bear instead of the threatening wolf it had once been. And finally, the name of the account changed from Cherry's name to something similar to Cuddles. My mom and I are fairly certain that this is evidence that Cherry decided to quit and give her account over to TipTop. Especially because it wasn't just my mom who noticed the change in behavior, but many other of hers and Cherry's friends began to speak about it and were asking my mom about the change in Cherry's account. This may be a conspiracy theory, but I 100% believe that this Cuddles person is Tip and not Cherry. It was only shortly after this whole situation that Avi instituted the project registry, which granted protections to project makers. They could neuter and spay their pets, make it impossible for third parties to sell them or put them on Free Breed. As a result, the Cuddles account eventually faded into obscurity now that she couldn't buy any more projects and subsequently abuse them. So, what do I think about all of this? To be honest, I did not expect my parody account to send such a ripple through a community that I wasn't even a part of. At this point, I do somewhat regret making the account, as it caused so many issues for not just myself or for my mother, but for other people that weren't even directly involved. Tip and her posse sent a lot of hateful words to other people that were just simply friends of my mom or were otherwise against them, and it really says something about how seriously people can take something that on the surface could be viewed as inconsequential or petty. Despite my young age at the time, I still do feel kind of bad for the others that I indirectly affected because of this. It really shows how easy it is to tip the drama scale in one direction or another, and this may be a good thing to consider when you find yourself in a similar situation. What I should have done instead was to help advocate for project rights at the time, rather than going out of my way to cause drama. It's always better to be the bigger person in the situation rather than clapping back in an equally petty way. Do I really feel bad for Tip though? Not even slightly. The real victim was my mom and others whose wishes were dismissed by Avi at the time because of my poor decision. Not to hate on Avi though, they're doing the best that they can, and they generally listen really well to the community, and to be honest, it's quite a nice place to be most of the time. With that being said, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you want to be a part of my witchy posse. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and don't forget to stay magical.